Testing, testing. Does that work? Yes. Thank you, members. It's 10 o'clock. The first item on the agenda is the election of chair. Do I have any nominations? Councillor Dupre.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Chris Morris.
Do I have a seconder? Bradnam.
I'd like to second Councillor Chris Morris.
Do I have any other nominations? And can I just take a quick vote? Those in favour of Councillor Morris? Those against? And those abstaining? In that case, that is carried. Councillor Morris, would you like to take the chair?
Perfect. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience. Much appreciated. Welcome to Cambridgeshire County Council's Staffing and Appeals Committee. The County Council allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to take pictures and use social media during the meeting. Can I ask, though, that everyone present turns their mobile phones to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting is taking place? Please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and that a recording of the meeting will be available to view on the County Council's website. There is no fire alarm test scheduled for today, so if the alarm sounds, I will adjourn the meeting and we will leave via the side doors and use the fire escape next to the kitchen to make our way to the assembly point in the car park. So with no further ado, we'll move to item 2 on the agenda, which is the election of the Vice Chair. I would like to start by myself nominating Edna Murphy in absentia for this role. Could I ask for a seconder?
Happy to second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whelan. Do I have any other nominations for the position of Vice Chair? On that basis, we will move to a vote. For confirmation purposes, please could you raise your hands in favour of that nomination? And could you raise your hands against? And finally, any abstentions? Noted. On that basis, Councillor Edna Murphy is duly elected as Vice Chair. Moving on to item 3 on the agenda, which is apologies for absence and declarations of interest. Would the Democratic Services Manager report any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. I've had apologies from Councillor Batchelor and Councillor Levine is substituting, from Councillor Kane and Councillor Bradnam is substituting, from Councillor Murphy, Councillor Whelan is substituting, and from Councillor Nessinger and Councillor Dupre is substituting.
Thank you very much. And does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest that isn't already in their register? Noted. Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item 4, which is the minutes and action log from the previous meeting. We are being asked to approve the minutes of the meeting which took place on the 21st of March 2025 as a correct record. Can I ask any member who does not agree with this proposal to please raise their hand? I see no objections to the proposal to approve the minutes as a correct record, so we will take that as carried. An updated action log is also included in the published papers for this meeting. Moving on to item 5, which is public questions and petitions. We have, to the best of my knowledge, received no public questions or petitions. So we'll move swiftly on to item 6, which is the workforce update. Can I ask the strategic HR business partner to introduce this report?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Sorry, thank you. Good morning. I'm aware that you've received the workforce update paper, and I'd like to bring a few key points from that paper to your attention today. Firstly, section 2.2 details the total headcount in the organisation. And what we can see from this data is that the headcount has reduced in the last 12 months. This indicates that the implementation of the Workforce Expenditure Panel has had an impact as it provides more rigour and challenge around the requirement for new and replacement roles. Section 2.4 details the levers within the organisation, and this year the turnover figure has remained within the target range of 10 to 13%. One of our key focuses for this year has been on gathering information from colleagues who leave us, and we know that our retention assistant and advisor are having some really useful conversations with leavers who feel able to share their experiences openly. This information is proving insightful, with the feedback being shared directly to directorate management teams. The role of the retention advisor and assistant also focus on those colleagues who are new to the organisation. They listen to their experiences to prevent any loss in the early months of employment and to understand if any change may have improved the employment experience. The data provided shows that 4.11% of leavers had less than 6 months service prior to leaving the organisation. This is a positive reduction to the last reported figure of 9.96%. We understand that a level of turnover in any organisation is healthy, but we're keen that newly recruited colleagues have a strong induction programme and have a positive experience of their early months working for Cambridgeshire. Section 3 of the report focuses on absence, and the health and well-being of our workforce is a key priority for both the Council and the HR advisory team, who monitor absence through the employee management system. The team monitor and analyse any patterns or trends. They look at the length of absence, the reasons for both long and short-term absence, and the number of instances reported across the different directorates. Line managers can seek advice from the HR advisory team, who proactively support managers to address their team absence. Over the last 10 months, we have seen an increase in absence across the organisation, with the primary reason for long-term absence being anxiety, mental health and depression, and for short-term absence, coughs, cold and flu. It's really important that absence is well managed from the moment an individual begins to experience any issues that may result in them needing time away from work, and therefore good line management support is vital. We have a number of resources that are available for managers to tap into. Some of that is online materials and some of it is more targeted advice and coaching from the HR advisory team. We also have some additional tools for handling absence cases, such as our employee assistance programme and occupational health. Whilst in the last 12 months, we have seen the average days lost per FTE increase, overall, as a council, we remain within our absence target bracket of 8 to 10 days lost per FTE and below the benchmark national figure and our statistical neighbours. Section 4.2 details that over the last few months, one of the key areas of focus for the HR advisory team has been supporting structural changes across the council. This is focused on the requirements to achieve savings
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm new to this council. I'm one of the newly elected councillors. I would appreciate if you didn't use acronyms, which I have no idea what they mean. There are several in your report I've noted to come, and I would appreciate on this first occasion if you could not use acronyms, just so we can have a full understanding of what you're saying.
Of course.
Thank you very much.
Apologies for that.
That is noted. Thank you.
So just going back to one of the key focuses of the council, which is the requirement to achieve savings, which was identified through the council's business planning process, and also the need that teams need to restructure to meet needs of the service, as well as embed the council's organisational design principles. This has required the HR team to provide comprehensive guidance and advice to ensure that colleagues are actively engaged and appropriately supported during restructure and consultation, and that managers are guided through the organisational change process to achieve the outcomes that are required. All proposals are reviewed robustly at what is called the Target Operating Board, which was a board that was established to create a central point of governance and oversight for any changes that are proposed within the council. This board provides a single point of focus on all restructure activity across the organisation and has required the HR advisory team to ensure that all proposed changes are rigorously tested prior to their implementation and to ensure that the savings have been achieved. Finally, Section 6 details some of the supportive innovation support that we've provided for managers, and this has been developed through the embedding of a training course called the Confident Managers Training Course, which provides every new line manager in the organisation the key information they need to be well-informed and confident line managers. This complements other learning that's available through the Learning and Development team. In addition, in a response to a clear issue that's been emerging regarding the recruitment challenges in children's social care, we have introduced what is called a pod approach, which is a collaboration between learning and development, HR and children's services to nurture and develop the skills and experience of newly qualified social workers. The aim of the pod approach is to incrementally build the skills, knowledge and confidence of these newly qualified workers prior to them taking on a full caseload and joining the children's social care teams in full. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that summary. We will now move to the debate on this item. Please do indicate to me if you wish to speak and address your questions to the chair. Yes, Councillor Willan.
Just on the absences of staff from anxiety, stress, and obviously mental health issues. Is there any particular department that is more sort of seen than others, than other departments? Is there a particular area where this is more, you know, sort of seen?
I think the question is understood. Is that something you can comment on?
Yes, of course. So each quarter, the HR advisory team produce a dashboard, and that would detail the exact figures for each directorate. And we work in a business partner approach where we attend directorate management teams and we talk through that with the executive director of that service.
Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Chair. At 6.2, and you've just recently referred to it, thank you, about the innovative approaches to address the recruitment challenges in children's social care. I was at a young people's meeting last evening, and in a quiet moment, you know, had an opportunity to speak to officers and found that in fact there is quite, you know, there's still stress on a difficulty in recruitment, and caseloads are still high. And I'm wondering if what they referred to was this pod approach, where instead of there being one caseworker, social worker, children's social worker for one child, there was actually more of a group approach. Is that what you're referring to with this pod approach?
If you're happy to speak to that, please do.
So the pod approach is solely for newly qualified social workers. So rather than them joining a team and perhaps being given, you know, a full caseload as other workers, the idea is that they have they're really nurtured and encouraged to build up to the sort of case levels that they would be expecting as a sort of fully up and running social worker. And it's just to give them additional support from the learning and the development team and other colleagues that have more experience and skills and confidence.
Thank you very much. And since you said earlier in your report that a proportion of the people who are leaving are people with less than 6 months service, it's obviously important to hold people while they're in that early stage and support them, because it's difficult in a new job, isn't it? And it's hard and there's lots to do. So it's good to support them in that time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bradnam. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you. Our attention was drawn to 2.4.2 and the 4.11% of leavers who had less than 6 months service before leaving. And there was a note that this was a positive reduction to the last reported figure of 9.96%. That's indeed quite a large reduction. Are those employees who were expecting to be permanent employees of the authority? Because there will presumably be some people who will be taken on short-term arrangements. Do they get counted in among those less than 6 months service figures? And is there a distinction drawn between people? If so, is there a distinction drawn between people who expected to have less than 6 months and then went, and people who expected to have a permanent or much longer position and then left to their surprise?
Please do address that if you can. Thank you.
Thank you. So the figures will be for permanent employees. It's usually pretty rare that we'd have somebody on a fixed term contract for less than 6 months service, but I can take it away and just sort of double check that those people haven't been included, but there would be a very, very small amount of people who were on less than a 6 month contract. 6 months would kind of be the minimum, really.
I'll take that outside the meeting if I can, Chair, because I'd be interested in a little more delving into those figures. Thank you.
Please do. We can take it as an action to look into that. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Black.
Thanks very much, Chair. I just want to comment a little bit on the actual reduction in headcount, because it does trouble me a bit that we're sort of being asked almost to celebrate that. And we are a very cash-strapped authority that struggles to perform our statutory duties, let alone the many discretionary things we ought to be doing. And I do feel that reading those first paragraphs, it sounds to me that this is actually jobs that need doing, not being done, and people who are doing a job not being replaced. Because essentially, local authorities in the UK have been suffering from a sort of Doge regime for the last 15 years, where I really don't think that there's any waste that's been going on that the councillors haven't been very keen to get out. And people talk about, well, should you have a Doge to sort of reduce headcount? So I think that's really just continuity conservatives. The main reason I worry about the reduction in headcounts is I think it shows how little progress we've made on insourcing in the last 4 years. What we should have been seeing is our staff numbers going up and savings being made as a result. The biggest items of expenditure for this council are in adults and health and children and young people. And the vast majority of that expenditure goes straight through our hands to private companies or to academies in the case of schools. And that's where the waste is. And there's companies like HC1 Limited that we kicked out of our contracts recently who ran care homes very badly for us, but they're incorporated in the Cayman Islands, and the money that we spend, a lot of it goes straight through into profit in the Cayman Islands. And we could be doing those jobs in-house and not paying out in profit. I'm fed up with the procurement system where we're paying a lot of money to our staff to do procurement with poor results, where we see sometimes privatisation or things like respective charities being replaced by predatory private companies, with the result that we are wasting public money on private profit and indeed paying for the resources they use on staff to specialise in winning contracts and gaming the systems. So it worries me that the main consequence of the council moving from a joint administration to a majority administration might be that we no longer try and make progress on that and actually increase our headcount by saving on the money that's going out for other people to employ people, but also make a very large profit from it as well. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Black. I think a couple of specific questions in there as well. I think first around the nature of the reductions over this period. Is that something you can speak to? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Sue Grace, Executive Director for Strategy and Partnerships. So I'll try and address each of the points in turn. So the reduction in headcount, you may be aware that as we were coming through into the latter half of the last financial year, then the council as a whole was reporting an overspend position. And obviously that's a very serious position to be in. And so a number of control measures were introduced across the council in order to address our overall finances, so that we could come in at the end of the year with a better financial position, because obviously that pressure is something that we cannot sustain, and any overspend in one year knocks on into the subsequent year. So one of the control measures we introduced was a workforce control panel, which is chaired by the Chief Executive, Stephen Moyer. And part of the purpose of that was to really review on a case-by-case basis all the recruitment requests that came through across all directorates, and also where we were appointing people who were perhaps moving on and filling vacancies. So the reduction in headcount you see here, in some cases, may be a delay. So, for example, in some of the services I'm responsible for, we looked at how we could reprioritise work, delay a recruitment. So that's not the same as taking that post out of the workforce and off the establishment, but delaying in order to address in the short term the overall financial pressure, and then picking up that recruitment a few months down the line. Some of one of the paper refers to a target operating model board and organisational design principles. Something else we've looked at really closely is arrangements where how many direct reports does a line manager have, and can we ensure that we've got some consistency across the council? So by applying those types of principles to, as we've reviewed vacancies as they've come up, we've sometimes been able to change the line management arrangements and change the way the service operates. But I want to absolutely assure councillors that those decisions, either to delay recruitment or to shift things around in line management, are always taken with an eye on capacity that's required to deliver services to the public, so that any decision that we make within that workforce control panel does not have a detriment to our service to residents. So there is a relationship between our financial position and that headcount reduction, and obviously the figures we're looking at here are for that latter part of the last financial year. So I hope that helps in part to address some of the points you've raised. In terms of insourcing, then you refer to the Adults Health and Commissioning Directorate in particular. And whilst I can't speak with any great detail on that, then I do know that as we approach the consideration of whether we use third parties or whether we deliver things in-house, that is always, when we do options appraisals, that is one of the options that we would be considering. And that certainly is the case and continues to be the case. And I say particularly it's a pertinent point to make with respect to the Adults Health and Commissioning Directorate. The final point about procurement is, again, I'm sure a number of you will be aware that we've recently been through some changes in procurement legislation. And so obviously the rigour around our procurement has always been tight, and we continue to address that through the changes in legislation. But I just again want to assure members here that we always look at quality and cost as we procure, and we ensure that we get the best value for money. So in any third party, whether they be what one could describe as a commercial enterprise or a charity or voluntary sector organisation, then it's about the quality and cost consideration against the outcomes that we need to deliver. But that is looked at very rigorously. And because of the procurement legislation changes recently, there's been comprehensive retraining for officers across the council on procurement and contract management, both to address that legislation, but I think also it gives an assurance about the rigour that we approach in terms of quality and cost for contracts. So I hope that helps in part to address some of the points that have been raised. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you very much, Chair. With regard to absences, I'd just like some detail on what we do to assist members of staff that are suffering from stress, anxiety, mental health and depression, because all those are really very much linked, as are some of the other symptoms you've got there, you can get all those from stress-related illnesses. So I'm just wondering what we do to assist members of staff that are struggling with stress and the other items on that list. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. An important question.
Thank you. Yes, really important question. So we have a wellbeing business partner, and they are responsible for looking at wellbeing across the organisation and work really closely with the HR advisory service. So what we would do is we will signpost individuals to all of the resources of support that we've got. We've got a wellbeing hub. We've got like a counselling service, an employee assistance programme that isn't just one face-to-face counselling or over the phone counselling. It's got resources and tools that you can use for a number of things. We've also got occupational health, which we can signpost individuals to if that's necessary. We've got some external organisations that we can refer to if needed that support people that may have been off long-term sick in being able to return to work. And we have e-learning around wellbeing, and it's just something that we raise regularly with all directorate management teams to ensure that line managers are fully aware of the resources and the support that's available. We also have monthly a wellbeing hour, which all staff can join, and we have various topics that are discussed at that as well. So hopefully that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Levin, do you have a question as well?
Well, yes, thank you. And I'm obviously, I think like all of us, are quite concerned at these rising anxiety levels, and note that it's happening at a time when the staff numbers are reducing and presumably there's a process of retrenchment. Do we have a morale problem here, or is it just a short-term issue that we're dealing with? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Levin.
Thank you. So as I answered in one of the sort of previous questions, we will look at each directorate individually because there may be different challenges across different services, whether that be social care or some of our highways teams. So we take very detailed information to those directorate management teams, and we talk to the service directors in those meetings about what challenges maybe that would include whether how they see the morale of their staff in that particular service. We also gather, as I've mentioned in the report, information from people who are leaving us as to why they are leaving, and if there's any particular issues that we can address and take back to directorate management teams to prevent anybody else from experiencing those things.
Councillor Dupre.
Can I just follow up on the morale point and ask whether we have, I mean, clearly it's a very turbulent time for staff working in local authorities with the local government reorganisation process grinding on, which it will do for several years to come, and it's an uncertain time generally for people working in the local government sector. Do we have any sense of whether that is having an effect within our own workforce, and how are we dealing with that particular challenge?
Thank you, Councillor Dupre.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Dupre. I think it's hard sometimes to be precise and to understand, whether the direct correlation between the local government reorganisation and people's morale, but we all know that uncertainty is something that's challenging to deal with. So obviously one of the best ways to approach that is to communicate frequently and regularly, and even sometimes communicate if there's not much of an update. And so certainly we, in addition to the wellbeing conversations that we have, opportunities for staff to talk specifically around wellbeing issues, then we do on every other week have a whole staff conversation, which is usually led by the Chief Executive, Stephen Moyer. And Stephen, as you know, is leading on all the discussions with members and with partners around local government reorganisation. And Stephen regularly updates all staff, and we use all our range of communication channels to update staff around local government reorganisation, both what we know, the current work that's been undertaken, what the timescales are. And I think actually just providing that information and providing an opportunity for people to ask questions as well. So if I just use my own directorate as an example, I complement what Stephen does by having an open online session with all of my staff every few months. And again, it's an open forum for questions. And so I think it's about the provision of information. We can't take the uncertainty of local government reorganisation away, but we can provide information, reassurance, support. And I think the other thing that's really helpful is I think all of our learning and development and our training offer for staff, because actually what gives staff confidence is to know that they're growing and developing their skills, their experience and their knowledge, and that actually it makes them employable, and having that confidence that they're being invested in and that they're being valued by the training offer that we provide. Then whatever happens in the future and however that plays out, we want colleagues across the council to feel confident that they have grown and developed in their skills and experience and their confidence in their work during their time with us. So that's the approach we take in this uncertain world. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And I strongly echo the feeling that communication and agency are two critical parts of addressing those kind of challenges. In the interest of time, I think we'll just take one further comment or question. And Councillor Galbraith.
Thank you, Chair. Again, maybe speaking from inexperience, but looking in particular at point 7.2, which gives you a breakdown of monies being spent on various posts. What I am trying to look at is, I take up Councillor Black's point about the reduction in staff numbers, and therefore, is there, and does it come under the control of HR and the procurement within HR to employ agency staff? And if that is the case, and I refer particularly in education, but if that is the case, where do I find the figures for those extra costs? Because this is, if not supplied, then this document becomes disingenuous, to be quite honest, because it's trying to state you've improved the situation by reducing staff numbers, but it's very easy to go a contract out to a third party, and these numbers don't appear to be within this report. Or am I mistaken? Could you possibly educate me?
Yes, of course. If agency worker usage is something that's you're interested in, I can certainly take that away and we can share that at a future meeting if that's agreeable to you, Chair.
I'd be happy for that to be taken as an action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any final pressing questions or comments? Well, thank you very much for the constructive debate, everybody. Much appreciated. We will now move to vote. In this case, we're just simply voting to note the content of this report and the actions planned as mentioned. Given the nature of that, can I just simply ask that any member who does not agree with that proposal raises their hand at this point? Then, with no objections, I think we can consider that proposal to be carried. So thank you very much, all of you. Moving on to item 7, which is the People Strategy Update. Can I ask the Head of Workforce Policy and Wellbeing to introduce this report?
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to share this via the screens for you to see, so bear with me one moment.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Always a relief when that works. Yes. Okay, so this is our second update on the progress of the People Strategy Action Plan and aims to provide a committee with an overview of the types of activity taking place across the organisation and the breadth of our HR services, human resources. This is our second update on the progress of the People Strategy Action Plan and aims to provide, reading from paper. The People Strategy Action Plan will continue to develop over the life of the People Strategy with updates to our corporate leadership team and to this committee. We have involved other stakeholder groups, including our trade unions and our internal employee network, in creation of that strategy and action plan, so that voices across the organisation are included in the actions that we take. Our people strategy is focused on 4 themes, which you'll see here: attracting you, appreciating you, supporting you, developing you. And these represent the different aspects of our colleagues' employment journeys with us, with an overarching link of inclusion to the workforce elements of the Council's Equality, Diversity and Inclusion, so our EDI strategy action plan. And you'll hear more on that specifically from our EDI business partner shortly. You'll see from the overview of actions in progress that at this second update, we have already completed 8 of the areas of activity. The majority of areas of action are in progress. There are 3 planned but not started yet. One of those is to further progress our capabilities around benchmarking workforce data. The other 2 are under the Developing You theme, and they relate to pausing the procurement of an electronic recording system for employee performance and learning needs, and to the establishment of a learning centre, which is also on hold at the moment. Both of those relate to budgetary reviews, and the latter also to the review of the accommodation improvement programme. Our first theme then, attracting you, some highlights that I've pulled out here from the breadth of activity that's taking place in each of the 4 themes. I'm aware that you'll have seen the presentation, so I won't read through all of those, but attracting you focuses on making sure that we are well placed as an employer to attract the right people, looking at the candidate experience, training, recruiting managers, looking at the design of roles and the design of adverts, making sure that we're promoting our full range of benefits and understanding the new starter experience. And this creates a process of continual learning and improvement in our recruitment journey. We've heard from colleagues that they are keen to stay with us, and sometimes that might mean taking a role in another part of the organisation. So we also look at internal career pathways as part of attracting you. Of particular value here are ways that we can bring people into new careers through a range of routes, including apprentices, graduate schemes, and work experience. And this is another way in which we ensure we are an inclusive employer, well placed to benefit from the diversity of people that live in our communities. Appreciating colleagues for their work and commitment spans not only pay and benefits, but ways of recognising excellence and role modelling that the how is just as important as the what in the way we work. It's about listening to colleagues and finding ways to act on feedback. Examples here include that we will be looking at our performance ratings approach, and that our leadership team is role modelling ways to protect time in the working day, following feedback that back-to-back meetings were taking a toll on colleagues' abilities to engage effectively. So that can look like starting meetings at just 5 past the hour to make sure people have a short comfort break in between. We've also had our second year of our Spotlight Awards. celebrating a range of contributions from colleagues, including those who have exemplified our new CARE values. And CARE in this instance stands for collaborative, accountable, respectful, and excellence. Those are our 4 values. And these themselves arose directly from listening to colleague feedback. Continuing with the Appreciating You highlights. Appreciating that everyone has something to bring and that we are an employer where people can feel they belong and can contribute is central to our employment approach. We know that sometimes very simple changes and adjustments can make the difference in people being able to show up to work and do their best. And we seek to understand the diversity of experience to reduce and remove barriers to this in a variety of ways. Highlights from our Supporting You theme. Both in our community and as an employer, we know the value of good work and jobs that support people's health and well-being. We know it is better for people to be in work, and we are constantly looking at interventions and best practice to support people to be well at work. Some particular highlights this year have been to achieve accreditation as a menopause-friendly employer and to have celebrated 1 year of our Schwartz Rounds reflective sessions. We also want our physical environments to support health in the same way, and for the right learning to be in place to enable both colleagues and managers to support their own health and well-being and that of their teams and colleagues. We listened to feedback from line managers who felt that they needed more support to have effective conversations with their teams about their health and well-being. And we launched a new offer to give them the skills and knowledge that managers need to feel confident in those discussions. Increasing opportunities for professional development is an essential part of work engagement, and we've launched a range of new learning offers to support people across the organisation, including line managers and senior leaders, apprentices, and other ways in which people can be supported to work and learn. And you'll see that reflected in our gold membership level of the 5% Club, which we achieved in November, which means that at least 5% of our workforce is engaged in recognised earn and learn long-term development schemes. It's important that colleagues' experiences are heard and understood in looking at the effect of our people strategy. Where we can, we find ways to seek and consider feedback, and we have a selection here from colleagues who have experienced elements of our employment offer, which indicates that we are on the right track. Those are taken from a range of sources. Sometimes those are through feedback in sessions that we've run in terms of learning or our wellbeing hours. Sometimes they are from our new starters and the exit interviews that the strategic HR business partner referred to earlier. And a particular highlight was the feedback on our apprenticeship programme and the associated good ratings in the recent Ofsted inspection of that. There are some areas in which we need to ensure that we stay on track or revisit priorities over the coming months, and these will be discussed with corporate leadership team, which replaces the original governance of this strategy through the Corporate Change Board. It's important that our action plan is flexible to respond to financial challenges and emerging priorities, and I referred to some areas where we've paused activity while we fully understand the implications of some of those challenges. The vast majority of the plan is on track. And I expect to report further progress in relation to benchmarking activity, particularly when I present next to this committee.
just not to interrupt, but on that previous slide, I just wanted to point out that those two screens are showing the full slide, but these two at this end of the room are only showing a proportion of the whole slide. It's an IT delight, which I'm sure you'll want to sort out, but it's just to let you know that that isn't displaying on these screens in the same way.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Councillor Bradner, much appreciated.
Thank you. And finally, some of the other activity that we expect to see taking place in the coming months is shown on this final slide, and I look forward to updating you on this when I next see you. If there are questions on any of the themes and activities I have covered, I'll be pleased to answer those that I can today and liaise with colleagues across HR services, so across human resources, to provide more detail where I don't have those facts to hand. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much indeed, Anna. We will now move to the debate members, and I think we will start there with Councillor Willan.
On the update overview, this slide, appreciating you and supporting you, it says that it's in progress, but plan to not started, got 0 against it. When are the plans, or how are the plans going for that, and when will they be started?
Thank you. So the overview slide shows each of the numbers of total actions that were planned as part of the current action plan in the second column there, headed number of actions, and the completed, in progress and plan not started columns show of those numbers of actions, how many are already completed, how many are in progress, and how many we have planned but not yet started. So in both appreciating you and supporting you, I'm pleased to report that we are either in the situation of having completed or we have in progress the actions that were planned.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bradner, if you have a question.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, this is not going to be swift, but I will be as brief as I can. So my question is, what are the reasons why people are leaving? And what are we doing? I appreciate the report and thank you for providing us with it. But can I just take you through a series of things? If we go to page 30 on our agenda, this is under the section attracting you. So this is the initial thing. We're saying at 1.3, our commitment to wellbeing and the ways in which we actively support this are attractive to candidates in a competitive employment market. All good stuff. And then at page 33, where we're looking at appreciating you when staff are in place, at 2.1, it says our commitment to people feeling cared for by their employer and able to care for themselves will allow people to feel appreciated as individuals and for what they need to be well. And then later on, under supporting you, if I can find that, 3.1, it says our buildings provide you with safe working spaces and are equipped and developed to complement the way we work. Now, apropos something different, I looked up, coincidentally, the change in staffing in the children's services from Buttsgrove Children's Centre, and there are a whole load of activities that used to go on at Buttsgrove. And I have no doubt that for all sorts of good reasons, that building needed to be repurposed. One of the other ones is here at page 26, the Accommodation Improvement Programme. Once the Accommodation Improvement Programme has been fully scoped and the scale and people requirements are clear, actions from that will be mapped against this plan and updates made accordingly. So, okay, there's a plan to change, and there may be all sorts of reasons that were appropriate. But what I have been to Scott House, and I'm aware that the underground car park at Scott House is quite limited. It's accessible, but it's limited, and it's right in the middle of Huntingdon, whereas what Buttsgrove Centre used to be out in a more residential area, and it had a certain amount of parking. And there was a consultation for the staff who were being moved from Buttsgrove to Scott House. And in the analysis of that consultation, it says, we understand that accessibility to parking may have been a consideration for individuals when they joined the council. It is Cambridgeshire County Council policy that parking fees will not be reimbursed where you pay to park at your own place of work. Individuals do not have a contractual entitlement to an on-site car parking space at any of our sites. Therefore, parking costs incurred to access your contractual office space are deemed a personal expense. Now, obviously that's a policy statement, but this was staff who were originally, perhaps, I don't know, taken on and understood that Buttsgrove might be the place that they would usually work, and have now been moved into Huntingdon, where they might have to pay for parking. And I just wondered, you know, this looks as if we, and by the way, all of these documents were in spring this year. I'm just wondering, the response to the formal consultation on the change to contractual work base from Buttsgrove was dated 8th of April 2025. So what I'm just wondering is, are we saying one thing and doing another? In other words, we're saying we're doing all the right things and supporting our staff, and actually saying, no, you've got to move to Huntingdon and we're not going to help you pay for where you might have to park. So I just wondered, can you possibly address that?
Thank you. So I think your question was, are we saying one thing in our people strategy and people's experience is perhaps slightly different? The purpose of the consultation with those colleagues from Buttsgrove in moving should have covered any concerns that they had in relation to what was being changed in terms of their contractual base and the implications for them. One of our employment policies covers not direct costs, but a contribution towards costs where we are asking people to move from one base to another, and it is further for them. So for some colleagues, if it was a particularly large change, they may have been entitled to a reorganisation allowance for a fixed period of time. If there was anyone with particular accessibility requirements, that should have been covered on an individual basis with them in that consultation. I can't speak to the specifics, of the consultation myself, so I wasn't involved. But I think the purpose of that process would have been to establish what the concerns were of colleagues and to try and mitigate those as far as is possible within our employment approach, which, you are correct, does not include to reimburse parking costs at someone's contractual base, and that is consistent across the whole workforce.
The other question that I asked right at the beginning was, what data have you got from the leaving interviews? Because from exit interviews, I've asked for this in other circumstances, and I think it's really important that the reports that we receive at this committee are full, you know, that they're a full explanation of the whole thing. And you have given us some data, but I just wondered, it would be interesting to understand why people are leaving. I mean, it might be, you know, salaries at another authority are more competitive or something like that. It might be something completely outside our control. Or it might just be, oh, my husband's work is moving and I'm moving with him or something, you know. So, you know, it would be useful to know if it's because people are not feeling supported sufficiently in the county council, or if they feel the working arrangements don't suit them, or indeed that their accommodation doesn't suit them. Thank you. I was wondering whether we might have some response on that at a later committee.
Thank you, Councillor Bradenham. I'm not sure if that's something you have data to hand on and want to comment on now, or whether you prefer to take it away.
We certainly can bring back to this committee, perhaps as part of the quarterly workforce figures, the main reasons for leaving, because we do look at those quarterly based on data from exit questionnaires and the exit interviews that we conduct, and those are analysed each quarter, including by directorate area. So that's certainly something that we could do.
I think that would be really important for the committee to look at. Thank you.
I think if we take that as an action for the next meeting, that'd be much appreciated. Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much for an excellent report. Going through it, though, it would have helped me where you've got comments from people about how we're doing, if we'd have included some, if you did have any, negative compact, returns on your feedback. If you've had negative, I think we need to know as a committee what negatives you've had, so that we can then see going forward how we're looking to remove those, so we don't get those negative issues further down the line. But I couldn't see any negative feedback, so I just think it would help the committee if we knew, because it may be that it's common across an area, and if we don't know what those negative feedbacks are, I don't see how as a committee we can possibly assist in trying to make it better for our staff, which at the end of the day is our aim, is to make life better for all our staff. So that's my only comment really, is in the report going forward, if we could see if there is any negative feedback, particularly if it's a consistent negative feedback. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gardner, is that something you'd like to make comment on now?
I completely understand what you're saying, and we will have access to the full breadth of comments from colleagues. So perhaps I could look at what are the sort of typical things that people are saying in the positive, what are the typical things that people are saying in a more constructive manner, and give you that balanced view next time. I will say that we do look at all of the comments that we receive in evaluations or in exit interviews, for example, and those are then followed up to see what we can do. But I appreciate that it would be useful to the committee to see the breadth of that. So I think that's a really helpful comment. Thank you.
Just on that point, absolutely important to give both sides of the coin. But I think if there are like 92 people saying, it's a wonderful employer and I'm really sorry I'm leaving, but I've got this thing to do, and there are 92 people saying, I'm having a horrible time and I'm leaving for these reasons, then we need to know what the numbers are. We don't need to know, obviously we don't need to reveal individual personal information at all, but we need to know the balance of not just to give us equal numbers. We need to know, are there more objections, or, we need to understand the data properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bradnam. I agree that the reporting needs to be proportionate. Councillor Black.
Thank you, Chair. I was pleased to see at the beginning of the remarks you made, you acknowledged trade unions and the input that they have into this sort of thing. The only thing I would comment is that there's very little in these papers. I mean, for instance, on page 25, where it says how we gathered information. The trade unions are the major, totally independent source of income that we have of what our employees are thinking. And I'd like to see more in these papers about that demonstrate that we engage with our trade unions, that we're embedding that into our decision making, and that we're taking notice of what is said by our trade unions and our trade union members. Thank you.
Thank you. What I can say today is that we meet monthly with our trade unions as part of our corporate joint panel. So we are keeping colleagues in our trade unions not only informed, but giving them the opportunity to voice feedback and concerns of their members. And we also have a series of local joint consultative and negotiating groups, as another acronym, JCNGs, where colleagues can raise things that are specific to service areas. We also invite our trade union colleagues to our regular health, safety and wellbeing meetings, both at a directorate level and at a corporate level. So we will take away a reflection, Councillor Black, in terms of what we might be able to bring to summarise the themes that are arising in those meetings, if that would be helpful.
Thank you very much indeed. Much appreciated. In the interest of time, I think we'll take one final question or comment if there are any. Yes, Councillor.
Comments and probably a question as well. And first of all, what I'm going to say may not appear to be quite connected, but in my view, they are. And maybe you'd like to come back to me on that. I've been involved in running businesses for the last 40 years, both small, very large PLCs and abroad as well. I found it astonishing, the remark you made, that you allowed meetings to start 5 minutes late to allow for comfort breaks. Well, if you'd been working in any of my companies, I'm afraid that would not be on. You set a meeting time to start at that time, and you have your comfort break before that time, and that's down to the individual employee. Next, you come up and say that we have health kiosks. How much is that costing the council? We're an accredited menopause-friendly employer. Great. Do you have a midlife crisis friendly employer status as well for male colleagues? Because that doesn't seem very equal to me. That is my question. There is other comments in there, but I'll just appear to be going on. So I'd like to limit that. I have got other comments about other things, but I'll limit that. And I respect the chair may not want to give me the time to bring up my other questions at this meeting, but could you answer me those questions, please, or make comment on it? Thank you, Chair.
Please feel free to comment.
Thank you. I'll take your first point about the meetings, and perhaps I didn't express that as well as I could have. The meetings are set to start at 5 past the hour, so that when we've got Teams meetings that go on until the hour, we were finding that colleagues were sat at screens back to back for several hours at a time. So it was about trying to structure in from the chair of the meeting a plan to start at 5 past, as opposed to finishing a meeting and then starting immediately the next meeting online. You mentioned midlife. We actually were running a programme called the Midlife MOT up until the DWP ended that programme, which I believe was in the summer last year, and that was available to everyone in a particular age bracket across all genders, specifically looking at assessing career aspirations and support for career development, well-being, and also financial planning. So when we have the opportunity to take part in interventions like that, we do. And your other question was regarding health kiosks. Those are actually a provision through our public health team for the community, and we ensure that colleagues are able to access those health kiosks when they can be made available in the public spaces of our buildings, so that we are enabling colleagues to it's taking their sort of vital signs, blood pressure and so on, weight, and that's part of a community programme that the public health team are running.
Briefly, if you will. Thank you.
Isn't that taking away some of the responsibilities of the NHS? Why are we doing that in council, and why is the council paying for this? We're a council who have a very large deficit. Who is paying for this was my question. You didn't answer that. Thank you.
Please, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
So in terms of some of the provision, some of it is funded by the health service. So because what the health service is concerned about is that actually they are conscious that actually a big employer such as this, and you said you're familiar with working in big employers, that actually if they can reach into those employer environments and raise awareness of when there are concerning signs maybe around blood pressure or whatever. So actually some of that is reflecting our joint partnership with health. Some of it may be supported through public health, and public health sits within the local authority, but its funding is described as ring-fenced. So it's ring-fenced by government, which means that if the money public health receive has to be spent on public health initiatives. So if the expenditure comes through public health, that is in accordance with the requirement for that funding for our public health colleagues, and that may too well include promoting both through GP surgeries but also through other environments regular health checks. So certainly I'll speak personally. For those of us who are getting a little older, I am speaking personally, I stress, regular health checks are important. And so again, public health will work with GP surgeries, but also in the work environment to encourage that activity to have some profile and to encourage members of the workforce to participate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, in the interest of time, we will conclude the debate there, but thank you once again for the constructive comments. We will now move to vote, which once again is simply to note the status of the actions in the People Strategy Action Plan. Given the nature of that vote, I will once again simply ask if any member does not agree with this proposal, and if so, please raise your hand now. On that basis, therefore, it is carried. Thank you once again. We will move now to item 8, which is Quality, Diversity and Inclusion Strategy Update. Can I please ask the EDI business partner to introduce this report once you have set yourself up and made yourself comfortable? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just make sure they're working okay. There we go. Good morning, everyone. I'm here today to present an update on our Equality, Diversity and Inclusion, EDI, strategy. This strategy is a key enabling strategy for the Council and sets out our equality objectives, a key requirement for us as part of our duties under the Public Sector Equality Duty of the Equality Act 2010. Action plan progress is monitored by the EDI Leadership Forum quarterly, and it is reported to the Community's Social Mobility and Inclusion Committee biannually, as well as this committee. The strategy has 3 strands: our workforce, our communities and our services, and today I will be presenting an update on some of our actions under the workforce theme. Page 74 of the papers and the slide on the screen provides a red, amber, green RAG rating for the actions in each theme, and pages 75 and 76 identify some of the actions completed and in progress since the last update to this committee. You'll see here on the slides some highlights of some of our actions, and those have been completed since my last update to this committee. So I just wanted to draw your attention to some of those. I won't read through every single one. One of those being our ongoing support and advice on equality impact assessments, which is a legal duty for us, and the development of a reasonable adjustment e-learning package with the colleagues from Learning and Development and our staff network, IDEAL, which is inclusion, diversity, equality for all. Each of the actions identified fulfil our requirements under the Equality Act 2010 and the Public Sector Equality Duty as detailed next to each individual action. Page 77 showcases our work towards becoming a disability confident leader. We'll be submitting a self-assessment to an external reviewer, identifying the actions we are taking to recruit, retain and develop disabled people. Page 78 details some of our anti-racism work that we're doing, including our launch of our new Global Majority Peer Support Group, which is a term which refers to people who are not white, encompassing Black, Asian and minority ethnic people. And our work towards the Social Care Workforce Race Equality Standard, SC-RES. Finally, page 79 outlines guidance and resources we are producing to support colleagues in providing a supportive environment in their diverse teams and deliver inclusive and accessible services to our diverse communities. All the work showcased includes links to our requirements under the Equality Act 2010 and demonstrate how we're meeting our duties, again under the Public Sector Equality Duty. Thank you and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Faye, for that succinct report. We will now move to the debate, members. Starting with Councillor Whelan.
You talk about microaggression documents. I would like to see micro affirmation and micro inclusion produced. How we can actually do the opposite from the microaggressions to actually the affirmation as well. That's just as important as the microaggressions. Things like correct pronouns and allowing quieter voices to speak without interruption, because often people in meetings or generally the louder voices are always heard and not the quieter voices. And I think that's quite an important factor in actually in an inclusion and an equality document. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whelan. Is that something you'd like to make comments on?
Just to say thank you for those comments. We have acknowledged some of that in the microaggression toolkit, and I can share that with you if that's helpful. And if there are any comments or feedback, we can have a look. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Chair. I was looking at the action, it's page 76, developing neurodiversity at work awareness training. And I imagine this is very specific to work, but I wondered if that training is available to members, because we encounter people with neurodiverse conditions, perhaps unknowingly all the time, both at work when we're here at New Shire Hall, but also in the work that we do in the community. And it would be really useful, I think, to be given some support and understanding of how those conditions might be, the outworkings of those for us. Interestingly, I mentioned I was at a young person's cafe last night, and I was extremely aware that these are young people who have been traumatized. That's why they're in our care, and just wanting to be as inclusive and as welcoming and as normal as I could be, whilst being mindful that these young people have particular concerns and needs, and these are young people in their teens and later who we're helping to support. In this case, we were helping to support into work and finding out their viewpoints about the help that they wanted, and that's through children and young people. But in this, I'm just thinking we need to, when training of this type is available, I think members could appreciate it as well. And there might be subtly different training appropriate for that sort of forum, but in a general way, I think any training like this would be helpful for members too.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bradnam. I'm not sure if that's something you have an immediate response on. Please, Sue. Thank you.
Very happy to add that to the members' training. I will echo what Michelle said yesterday. We are just very aware that we've provided you with an awful lot of information, particularly new members, and an awful lot of training. So we have got the Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee yesterday. We did ask for nominations, and I think we succeeded in getting our nominations. Looking to my right there, for the member working group, because we have a long list. We'll add this to the list, because I think that is absolutely something we can provide for members, and then through that member working group we'll look to prioritise the training. So it may not all come immediately, because that would just continue to overwhelm you, which we acknowledge, but we'll add that to the list, and certainly through that group have the discussion, and so that we can prioritise the things of concern that members are raising with us that they would like to have training on. So I think that's, Michelle's not grimacing at me, so I've obviously conveyed that appropriately. So thank you very much. Thank you. Really important point. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Any other questions or comments? On that basis, then, we will conclude the debate and move to the vote, which again in this case is simply to note the status of the actions in the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Strategy Action Plan. Once again, can I ask any member who does not agree with that proposal to please raise their hand? On that basis, we can therefore consider that carried. and moved to the final item on the agenda, which is item number 9, the Staffing and Appeals Committee Agenda Plan. I believe it is numbered in the agenda as number 7, but I think it is item number 9. And can I ask the Democratic Services Manager to introduce this report?
Thank you, Chair. I have nothing to actually add to what's listed in the report, so it's a question of whether members have any questions.
Then we shall straight away open things up for questions on that agenda plan. Any questions or comments? Councillor Black.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not going to suggest anything at the moment. I think it's November. That's the next meeting we're looking at, isn't it? Is there a sort of deadline by which you'd like us to get any suggestions to that? Because I think we're in a fast-moving environment, and we might find that we've got a new government, hopefully doing new exciting things, and they're going to throw up things that we're going to want to talk about. So, I think it's quite possible that we will want to expand on this agenda, but at the moment, I've not got a specific proposal.
Chair, I don't know if it would help. I think what would be useful if I sent an email around to the committee with the committee's terms of reference. So I think it's important when you add items to the agenda plan that you're aware the remit of the committee, because obviously there are some things relating to, as Councillor Black has said, national government issues which might be more relevant going to other committees. So if I do that, then obviously you can work with the terms of reference to see what items need to come in the future. And I can put a deadline as to when we need them for November.
That would certainly be welcome. Thank you very much indeed. Any further questions or comments on this item? On that basis, then, we'll once again move to the vote, which is, again, simply to note the agenda plan. If anyone has any objections to that proposal, please could they raise their hand now? On that basis, we will once again consider that carried. And I believe that now concludes this meeting of the Staffing and Appeals Committee. So I'd just like to thank all of those who've presented today and everyone for your constructive comments and debate. It's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.